We had just returned from the Denver protest, still chanting about freedom, when I found Karen's 25-year-old son trying to break into my brand-new Mercedes. Inside that car was a $3 million check for my daughter's future, and he called the cops on me. What he didn't know was that behind my calm smile was the man who used to train the cops he just called. I still remember the crunch of gravel under my boots that evening. The sun hung low, spilling gold across the quiet street, too peaceful for chaos. My wife, Lila, and our daughter, Emily, were still humming protest chants from Denver. The only thing Colorado likes more than hiking is our democratic rights. It had been a long drive. We were proud, tired, and ready to unpack. Before we go on, please, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to see how many families, parents, and neighbors are feeling this story across the country tonight. Your comment helps this message reach more people who've faced unfair HOA rules too. Then, out of nowhere, I saw him, tall, sweaty, eyes darting, Karen's 25-year-old son, Dylan, crouched beside my Mercedes GLE. The sight froze my blood. My new 2025 Mercedes gleamed in the driveway, but his hands were pressed against the window, forcing a wire through the seal. Inside, on the passenger seat, was a sealed envelope, $3 million in checks for Emily's school fees and her summer abroad in Switzerland. "Hey!" I barked, running forward. Dylan jumped, panic flooding his pale face, then tried to pull open the door handle. "You're making a big mistake," I said, steady and cold. He smirked, shaking his head. "You don't scare me, old man." I reached into my pocket, ready to call the police. But Dylan was faster. He pulled out his phone and started dialing himself. "Let's see how you like cops, huh?" he sneered. "Mom's the HOA president. They always listen to us." He didn't know who he was dealing with. Behind my calm smile was a man who had trained federal agents on how to deal with thieves. When the sirens began to echo down the street, I whispered to myself, "Son, you just called the wrong man's bluff." The neighborhood was eerily still when the patrol car turned the corner, blue lights painting the picket fences. Dylan straightened up, pretending to be the victim. "Officer, that man threatened me," he yelled before I could speak. His voice cracked with fake fear, and I almost laughed at the performance. The officer, young and unsure, stepped between us. "Sir, let's keep calm. What's going on here?" His hand hovered near his holster. I held up both palms. "Check my car," I said evenly. He was breaking in. "There's a wire still hanging from the door handle." But before the officer could move, a familiar shrill voice sliced through the air. Karen. Clipboard in hand, hair stiff as her morals. "My son would never steal," she shrieked, marching toward us. He was checking for safety violations. "You park too close to the curb." Her words dripped with arrogance. The officer hesitated, confused. Dylan nodded, eyes wide with fake innocence. "Yeah, I was helping Mom." I felt heat rise in my chest, but I swallowed it. "Inside that car," I said, pointing, "is a $3 million check for my daughter's education." Karen's painted smile faltered for a split second. "You expect us to believe that?" she said. "I don't expect you to believe anything," I replied quietly. "But your son better hope the envelope's still there." The officer frowned and reached for the door. Dylan stepped back, hands trembling. Something in his eyes told me he knew exactly what was inside. Earlier that morning, we were still in Denver, marching peacefully among thousands, holding signs high, voices proud and strong under the wide Colorado sky. Lila squeezed my hand as Emily waved her little flag. "Daddy," she said, "does protesting really change things?" Her voice was small but full of hope. "It does," I told her. "When people stand together, even mountains move." She smiled, her blonde curls bouncing with joy. We never expected the return home to be a battlefield. The drive through the mountains had been serene, until we saw Karen's neighborhood patrol truck outside our house. Karen had always hated us. She said our Christmas lights were too creative, our dog too loud, and our kindness too performative. When Emily painted a rainbow mailbox, Karen sent a violation notice within hours. She thrived on control. Dylan, her son, had grown into her arrogance. He drove through the neighborhood like he owned it, Music blaring, never working a real job. I'd warned him once before when he egged my truck. "You're lucky I'm not your father," I'd said. He just smirked. That smirk returned today, right before he broke into my car. The memory of Denver's chants still echoed in my ears as I watched that officer hesitate. I thought, this isn't about the car anymore. It's about truth. The officer leaned into the car, flashlight cutting across the leather seats. The envelope lay half-tucked under the console, the seal nearly torn. "Looks like someone tried to open it," he said, glancing at Dylan. Karen's lips pressed thin, her face turning red beneath her foundation. "It's a misunderstanding," she stammered. "He must have seen it and thought." "Thought what?" I interrupted. "That stealing $3 million was a community service?" My voice was calm, but my patience was gone. Dylan looked away, muttering, "You shouldn't leave stuff like that in plain sight." "Funny," I said. "You shouldn't try to steal either." The officer's expression hardened. Karen's voice cracked. "Officer, you don't understand. This man, he's dangerous. He's threatening my son." I smiled faintly. "The only thing I'm threatening is his freedom, if I press charges." The officer asked for IDs. Dylan's hands shook as he passed his over. Karen whispered something frantic, but I caught every word. "Call Mr. Porter. He'll handle this." Mr. Porter, the HOA lawyer. I almost laughed. They thought neighborhood rules trumped federal law. The officers sealed the envelope in an evidence bag, labeling it with care. "Sir," he said to me, "I'll need a statement." I nodded, locking eyes with Dylan. "You'll get more than that, officer. You'll get the truth about this family." As the officer took notes, Karen made a hushed phone call. Her face twisted between anger and desperation. "Yes, Harold. It's him. The Denver man again." I could hear every word. "He's claiming my son tried to steal. We need to fix this fast. He's dangerous, trained or something." Lila stepped beside me, calm and firm. "Trained?" she said softly. "You have no idea." I caught the officer's gaze. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, "I'll ask you to step back. Let me handle this." Dylan fidgeted, biting his lip. "Can we just forget this?" he mumbled. "I didn't take anything." "That's not the point," I said. "You tried to. And you called the cops on me to cover your tracks." Karen cut in, her voice trembling. "You can't talk to my son like that." The officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, please." He turned to me. "You mentioned you're trained. What do you mean by that?" I sighed. "I worked 20 years teaching law enforcement how to identify manipulation and criminal behavior." Karen froze mid-breath. Dylan's smirk vanished. "Let me guess," the officer said, impressed. "FBI behavioral science?" I nodded slowly. "Retired now. But I still recognize a liar when I see one." The silence that followed was heavy enough to break bones. Karen's confidence crumbled like dust. "You can't just accuse my son. He's innocent." Her voice cracked under the weight of fear and pride. The officer stepped closer. "Ma'am, please calm down. This is serious. We have attempted theft and obstruction of justice." She spun toward me, eyes wild. "You think you're better than us because you've got money and a fancy car?" I stayed silent. Sometimes silence cuts deeper than words. Lila placed a hand on my arm. "Don't," she whispered. "She wants you angry." Karen lunged forward, pointing her finger. "You're not welcome in this neighborhood. We'll have you removed." "That's not how America works," I said softly. "You don't remove people for being right." Dylan's face went pale. "Stop. Please." But she didn't. "We'll sue," she yelled. "I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." I took a slow breath. "They already know, Karen. I'm the man who doesn't bend when liars shout." The officer finally called for backup. The flashing lights painted her face red and blue. In that moment, I realized something. Karen wasn't protecting her son. She was protecting her power. By now, half the neighborhood had gathered, whispering behind fences and peeking through blinds. Phones were out, recording every second of Karen's breakdown. "Is that Dylan?" someone whispered. "Didn't he crash that golf cart last summer?" Karen turned toward the murmurs, shouting, "Mind your business." But gossip moves faster than any siren. Within minutes, everyone knew the story. Karen's son caught breaking into my Mercedes. The officer began questioning Dylan again. "Why'd you try to open the door?" "I thought it was my friend's car," Dylan muttered. "It looks the same." "That's your defense?" I said. "You thought your friend's car had my license plate and federal tag?" A neighbor laughed. The sound cut through the tension like a blade. Karen glared at him. The officer radioed in. "We're bringing both in for questioning." Karen gasped. "You can't." "Ma'am," he said, "you've interfered with an investigation." Lila whispered to me, "Are you going to press charges?" I looked at Emily, clutching her teddy bear. "Yes," I said quietly. "This time, I'm not teaching. I'm enforcing." Dylan's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, he realized his mom couldn't save him. At the station, Dylan sat across from me, pale, shaking. The arrogance was gone, just a boy pretending to be a man. "Why'd you do it?" I asked softly. "Your mother's control. Does it make you feel powerful too?" He stared at his hands. "She said you don't belong here. She said people like you ruin everything." "People like me?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean honest people?" He looked up, eyes glossy. "She hates that you don't fear her." I leaned back. "That's because I've seen real monsters, son. Your mom just wears better clothes." He swallowed hard, tears spilling. "I didn't know about the money. I swear." I believed him. But belief doesn't erase consequences. The detective entered. We found fingerprints on the car and wire marks on the lock. It's clear he attempted entry. Karen arrived minutes later, yelling at every officer in sight. "You'll regret this. My husband's on the board." "Of what?" I asked quietly. "The HOA or humanity?" She glared. But the badge on my jacket caught her eye. "Special Training Division, retired." Her voice broke. For the first time, she realized power bows to truth. Weeks passed. The HOA meetings turned quiet. Karen stopped patrolling. The neighbors spoke in hushed tones when we passed. Dylan faced misdemeanor charges, community service, probation, counseling. I didn't push for more. Punishment wasn't my goal. Awareness was. One afternoon, Karen knocked on my door, hands trembling. "I came to apologize," she said softly. I studied her face. The pride was gone, replaced by something human, shame. "My son's in therapy now," she whispered. "He said you scared him, but also helped him." I nodded slowly. "Fear teaches, but truth changes." She glanced at my Mercedes, then at Emily playing in the yard. "I judged you," she said. "You're a better man than I thought." I smiled faintly. "No, I'm just a man who's seen too much to stay silent." She left quietly, her clipboard gone, her voice subdued. The neighborhood felt lighter after that day, as if everyone finally exhaled. Still, I never forgot the sound of that wire scraping my car door. It reminded me how easily trust can crack, and how deeply truth can heal. Years later, I told Emily the story again as she graduated from Stanford. The $3 million check had done its job, funding her dream. She laughed. "I still can't believe Dylan tried to steal from us." "What happened to him?" "He owns a mechanic shop in town," I said. "Fixes locks now." Funny how life teaches lessons. Lila smiled. "And Karen?" "She moved to Arizona. Sends Christmas cards sometimes. No clipboards, just peace." Emily hugged me tightly. "You never got angry that night." "How?" I looked at her, proud. "Because anger teaches nothing. Calm does." She smiled. "You always say that." "Because it's true," I replied. Behind every calm man is someone who's already fought his biggest battles. The sunset painted the sky like Denver that day. I felt grateful, older, and unshakably calm. I'd faced liars, thieves, and arrogance. But nothing compares to protecting family with truth. As the wind brushed through the pines, I whispered to myself, "Some wars end not with revenge, but with redemption."